All right, what's going on, guys? This is Rob, and at the time that I'm recording this video, I'm gonna be seeing Black Panther 2: Wakanda Forever later on today, and I am hyped. Oh my God, I'm so excited for this movie. But we are picking up with the Fantastic Four, and I timed this specifically because Namor joins the X-Men, kind of, but then like at the end, there's an ending to this that's absolutely crazy, right? So check this out. What this does is this initially picks up with Ben Grimm of the Fantastic Four. Now remember, one of the things that we've talked about over the course of Hickman's Fantastic Four run, and as always, you'll find the playlist down in the description, so you can always go there and get caught up. But whenever Ben Grimm goes into the Forever City, it basically devolves the people that walk in there. So in the case of Ben Grimm, basically he goes through a kind of physical change. He does revert back to his normal self. But what ends up happening here is Susan Storm basically goes on a kind of mission that we'll talk about here in a little bit. And so ultimately, Ben Grimm ends up consuming the formula that was given to him by the Future Foundation. Now again, the Future Foundation is basically the smartest kids that work directly for Reed Richards, which is why I say in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Just mark my words here. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there will probably be a time when Peter Parker opens his mail and there's going to be something in there that says, you are cordially invited to join the Future Foundation. If that happens, that's Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Just know that, right? Like, that's what the Future Foundation is. But it's the smartest people. But their first task was to basically cure Ben Grimm. Now, they couldn't permanently cure him because his exposure to the cosmic radiation when he first became the Thing in the Fantastic Four comics, it altered his body down to the genetic structure, right? To the genetic level. So all they can really do is give him like a week of looking normal out of every year. But of course, Ben Grimm takes it. Now, the funny thing, and for those of you guys who are new to the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm, do not mistake the banter they have back and forth for like a genuine dislike. They adore each other, right? Like they're brothers in every sense of the word outside of biological. They're not actually related, but they might as well be, right? I mean, they're all one family. So they bicker back and forth all the time and that kind of thing. And so where Ben Grimm takes the formula in front of Johnny Storm, Johnny's like, oh my God, no, Ben, my God, you know, and Ben's just like, oh my God, what's going on, Johnny? He's like, did it go bad? He's like, it's worse, man, it's worse. And so like Ben runs and looks in the mirror and then like, he's normal. Which is basically Johnny Storm busting his balls. But this is the relationship between Johnny and Ben, right? The beautiful thing about this is that once Johnny's done giving Ben Grimm a hard time, he's like, look, man, you've missed out on a lot of stuff, right? When you were the Thing, you couldn't go to different things without people looking at you funny. There's a lot of stuff that you couldn't really experience as just a regular guy. So I'm gonna give you the best night of your life. We're gonna go do everything. I'm gonna make some phone calls and we're gonna go have an amazing time. And it's a really cool moment. And I want you to kind of focus on this with Johnny Storm, because at the end of this, not the end of this video, but like at the end of the 3 story arc that we're covering right now, is the greatest Johnny Storm moment ever in the history of Marvel Comics. Oh my God, it's absolutely amazing. So the thing about this is like they kind of go out on the town, they sort of do their thing, right? They go to a baseball game, and in reality, like Ben Grimm has done this stuff before. He's walked around, he's gone to baseball games and so on, but people were always staring at him, right? Because he was the Thing, just this giant rock thing. And so what this means is he can actually just sort of go out and live his life and enjoy it without people looking at him funny. He does meet up with Stan Lee. Ben Grimm plays poker with superheroes, right? So like Captain America, even Nick Fury's there, which I don't know if I'd play poker with him, but what Johnny Storm does is he takes Ben Grimm to a final stop, and he's like, we're here. And Ben Grimm's like, where in the world are we at? Which is basically Alicia Masters' apartment. Now, Alicia Masters, for those of you guys who don't know, she's one of the most important characters when it comes to the Fantastic Four in Marvel Comics, historically speaking, in terms of like their greater stories. Alicia Masters, for example, was the first one to discover like Adam Warlock, different things like that, like the fact that she was kidnapped and taken to Adam Warlock because he was just too bright for them to be able to see him. So she basically felt his features and then basically, you know, made like a kind of molding of his face. But she's blind, right? And so for her and Ben Grimm, one of the things that had always gone on is they always had a romantic relationship, but because of the fact that Ben Grimm was the Thing, there was always that part of him that kind of held back, because the reality was he was kind of ashamed of how he looked in front of her, right? Which was one of the things that really made Ben Grimm highly relatable in Marvel Comics, because while not all of us are walking around with rocky skin, some of us are overweight, or some of us are underweight, or some of us are perfectly healthy weight, but because of what we're struggling with on a mental level, we just don't see ourselves as being attractive to other people, right? And so Ben Grimm was a great way for us to kind of relate to that kind of person if that's a part of life that you deal with. And so when Ben Grimm ultimately meets with Alicia Masters, of course he greets her and you know he's like, yeah, it's me, and she's like, cool, you know, and she's like, why do you sound so down? And then she goes to touch his face and realizes he's human. And the two of them are able to share an intimate moment together, which they never would have been able to do had Ben Grimm stayed the Thing. And so of course Johnny Storm's kind of like, good on you, Ben Grimm. Now, it's cool we got that sentimental moment. Now to the good shit. So here's the thing, right? So what this does, we pick up with Susan Storm, right? Susan Storm goes on her mission and she travels to Utopia. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Utopia is the island that the Fantastic Four took up residence on following the events of Dark Reign, right? So Dark Reign in Marvel Comics was a story where basically Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, had taken over as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then basically started gunning for all the superheroes and trying to get rid of them. So in order to operate both outside the jurisdiction of Norman Osborn as well as within the realm of the United States as superheroes, that the mutant population, the X-Men, were basically given sanctuary on an island called Utopia off the coast of San Francisco. So basically they could kind of operate in both worlds. That's where they reside at the time this story's being written. And so once Susan Storm arrives here, one of the things that kind of goes on is Susan Storm and Emma Frost meet each other. Now, here's the thing to understand. You don't necessarily see the Fantastic Four cross paths with the mutant population all that often. If we're talking about a hierarchy of social status, Susan Storm is pretty high above Emma Frost. And Emma Frost isn't too happy about it, right? It's like, Emma, Susan. One of the things I learned when I was younger, right? When I was younger, talking to my sister and so on, women can be catty, man. But as guys, it's kind of hard to pick up on. It's kind of hard to pick up on that thing. And the reality is, I remember my sister telling me, you don't really need to pay attention to like what women say to each other in order to figure out how catty they are. What you have to do is you have to listen to how they say it, man. Because if you pick up on how they say stuff, man, there's some stuff that goes on, man, and it's like, bro, it's kind of crazy. But the thing about this is that ultimately, this place was chosen as kind of a neutral territory. And the reason why is because Namor the Submariner is a mutant. And ultimately, it's Susan Storm meeting with Namor the Submariner so they can meet with the rest of the Atlanteans. Now, again, playing a little bit of catch up here for those of you guys who are joining us. As always, I highly advise you check out the playlist in the description after this video so you can get caught up on everything. But remember, one of the things that we learned is that you do have the main kingdom of Atlantis on Earth in the Marvel Universe, but there ended up being small sections of Atlantis that were discovered that nobody ever really knew about. And so this is quite literally a parlay. It's a meeting between the king of old Atlantis, or this other Atlantean colony below Vostok Lake, and Namor the Submariner in an effort to see if it's possible to find a way for both kingdoms to mutually exist. Now, what ends up going on here, right, following this, we transition to Reed Richards, right? Now, Reed Richards is on top of the Baxter building, and he's basically analyzing the fault. Now, those of you guys who aren't really familiar with that, and I imagine there's probably a lot of you who aren't, in Marvel Comics, you basically had two stories running between the mid to late 2000s, right? So between 2005, 2006, running up to about 2010, up to 2015, you had two different sections of Marvel happening. The first one was everything on Earth, Secret Invasion, Civil War, House of M, all that kind of stuff. Then you had everything out in space, Annihilation, Annihilation Conquest, the War of Kings, Realm of Kings, all that kind of stuff. So literally it was just two different landscapes. One of the things that had gone on during War of Kings is that Black Bolt of the Inhumans, who sucks, he ended up going to war with basically Vulcan, the third brother of Cyclops that nobody ever knew about, who was leading the Shi'ar Empire. This war was pretty massive in scale. A bomb was detonated out in space and it ripped a fissure open in space itself. At the time this story is being written, we don't know what's on the other side. Now, we did find out in a story called the Thanos Imperative, which we have covered, and basically it's the Cancerverse, a universe where no one in that universe can die because they killed Mistress Death. But the reality here is that story, as amazing as it was, again, hadn't necessarily come out at the time that the story's being written, right? And the kicker to this is that while Reed Richards is basically analyzing this and discussing this voice comes out of nowhere that says, you have more pressing matters than stargazing this evening, matters involving Galactus, right? The Silver Surfer has arrived on the scene. Now remember, in the last video we covered, the Silver Surfer discovered the body of Galactus from the future who'd been brought to the past and then killed. Reed Richards more or less hid it, right? And so there's a little more to his motivation than that, which we'll find out, in another video. But the thing about this is that, like, literally Reed Richards is just like, hey, what's going on, Norrin Rad? It's been a little while. How are you doing? And the Silver Surfer's like, I'm very, very pissed off. I found what was hidden below the surface of the Earth. And the response of Reed is like, I don't know what you're talking about, Silver Surfer, right? Norrin Rad's response, my brother in Christ, I can tell that it was you, right? Like, you literally have a unique cosmic signature and it was all over this body, right? Like, you might as well have stuck a sign with giant purple letters that said, Fantastic Four were here, right? That's what it might as well have been. And so once the jig is up, right, then Reed's kind of like, okay, I can explain it to you, but it'd be kind of difficult to explain to you, but it would take time for me to do. That's when the Silver Surfer is like, no, you misunderstand me, Reed. It is my master who seeks answers to difficult questions, and he would have them now. Now, you know what, guys? I'm in such a good mood because I'm going to see Wakanda Forever. Let's keep this story going. So what this does is this basically, like Galactus is madder than hell. This guy's pissed, and he literally snatches up Reed and he's like, explain. Now here's the thing to understand about this, right? When it comes to Galactus in Marvel Comics, there's been two eras of Galactus, the one you take seriously and the one you don't. In more recent years, Galactus is the one who's just kind of there and he's more or less a punching bag for people and that's it. At the time this story's written, man, this is the Galactus you take seriously. When this dude shows up, shit's about to pop off. It's an absolute thing, right? It's an absolute rule of the universe, right? Just the way it is. Omega level mutants are really overpowered. Black Bolt and the Inhumans suck. Galactus is a guy you take seriously, right? It's a rule, you don't argue with it. And so as soon as Reed is told to explain, he immediately offers an explanation. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's no beating around the bush, none of that stuff, right? He literally says, in the future, on a dying Earth, a collection of the remaining heroes and villains created a machine to open a hole in space and time and send the roughly 1 billion survivors of the human race back here. For this to work, they needed an immense energy source. So at great cost, they captured you and executed their plan, siphoning what they needed from your body to power their device. As a result, they were all transported back through time and you died. They literally burned your body out. They burned your life force out, getting themselves back here. And he says, the surfer found your remains deep beneath the earth because I buried them there. I was not trying to be deceptive. It just seemed wrong not to. And so that's when Silver Surfer is like, where are they, right? And that's when Reed's like, they're basically far away on an artificial Earth circling a star on the other side of a galaxy, right? Like a decaying star, basically a star that's turning into a black hole. That's when Galactus is like, located, right? And as soon as that happens, Silver Surfer's like, it's right over there. And Galactus is like, let's go, right? So that's the thing. Now, here's something that I want you guys to notice, right? And we're gonna get an explanation about this because I'm gonna tell you right now, Galactus is crapping his pants. He is terrified, right? He's scared as hell. And we'll find out why here in a second because it's amazing. It's like, this is amazing revelation that happens in the Fantastic Four. God, let me tell you, it's so phenomenal. We'll talk about it here in a second because it's hilarious, right? Now, Johnny Storm does show up because, of course, you know, Galactus is hovering over New York. It's enough attention for anybody. And so that's when he's kind of like, do we need to respond to this? And the response to Galactus is no, right? I have no intention of attacking your world, right? I'm leaving right now. At this very moment, I'm literally getting off of Earth as fast as I possibly can. And we're going to travel to this artificial world. And then we'll basically find answers there. And he literally says, and this is one of the most important things Galactus says. He says, you will attend me, Reed Richards, until this and other matters are resolved. The other matters, that's why Galactus is hauling ass off of this world, man. That's why he's booking out of here as fast as he can, right? So ultimately, Reed ends up going with Galactus, right? Silver Surfer's told, go to that world, prepare for my arrival, that kind of a thing. Galactus and Reed are like, they basically bail out as fast as they can. Now, here's one of the cool things that happens here, right? And we're gonna transition back to that Galactus moment here in a second. Yes, I'm gonna make you wait on it because there's something really, really cool that happens in between, right? So what we end up doing is picking up with Susan Storm once she's met with Namor the Submariner, and they're basically here in the Central Pacific Basin having this meeting with basically the other king of Atlantis. Now, the thing about this is that you do have Namor's second in command, Andromeda, and of course, she doesn't trust Susan Storm. And the reason why is because, one, Susan Storm is a surface dweller, and in Marvel Comics, much like Aquaman in the DC universe, Atlanteans do not trust people on the surface. And so she ultimately believes Susan Storm is leading Namor into a trap. Now, one of the most important things to understand here about the relationship between Namor and Susan Storm is that they've banged. Kind of, not really. They basically have, but Marvel's never really confirmed it, I don't think. But like, there's been instances where Susan Storm more or less stepped out on Reed Richards with Namor. But at the very least, it's one of these things where like Namor is very much interested in Susan Storm. So that's why you see her kind of getting special treatment. And that's why under any normal circumstance, Namor the Submariner would absolutely grill and question everything he's being told by somebody from the surface who's saying it's in your best interest to have this meeting with this other king of Atlantis in to hear what they have to say, or at least this other Atlantean kingdom that exists out there to hear what they have to say. But with Susan Storm, he's like, you know what? I trust you, Susan, mostly because I'm trying to get you between the sheets. But the thing about this is like, he's like, you know, let's roll with it and let's see what happens. Now, during this meeting that takes place, it's this kind of amazing moment, right? Because the reality is the entirety of this meeting is just going south. Namor and his main Atlantean kingdom do not want to give up virtually anything. They're agreeing to like compromise, but like if we're talking about percentages, it's like they're willing to give up 10% of anything they have, right? In reality, it's territory, it's what areas get governed, what areas are overseen, what area belongs to like Namor's kingdom, what area belongs to this other king's kingdom, that kind of thing, right? You know, it's a war of kings on the oceanic level. You do have some attempts to make this whole negotiation process work, but what's really funny is that in all of this, right, like this king literally just starts becoming just so irritated, right? He's like, this negotiation process is becoming untenable, right? Like, we all breathe the same water. You guys are not willing to give up any territory whatsoever. And the result of this is like, there really doesn't seem any point in being here at these negotiations. And the response of Namor is like, while you slept, the world changed, old king, and it changed for the better. He says, I agreed to this meeting so that I could see your face, so I could see for myself exactly what had awakened from a dark, long time ago. And now that I have, my course has been set. And this guy's like, okay, like, what in the world are you talking about? And Namor the Submariner, man. Here's the thing. Let me tell you something, man. In Marvel Comics, there's like 25 fans of Namor the Submariner. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? I mean, he's cool kind of sometimes, I guess. This is one of those moments when he's boss, right? He's like, this is my answer to your demands. He throws his spear across the room, kills the king on the spot, right? And then it's just like, this is my answer. Compromise? Never. And then just starts stabbing everybody to death. He kills them, like just starts killing all the leadership of like this other kingdom. He's like, I ain't compromising for shit, right? He literally says that there is only one king under the sea, and that's me, Namor the Submariner. Either you will bow before me or you will die. That's the thing, man. Namor the Submariner, man, this guy is next level sometimes, right? This guy's a boss. Now, getting to the part that you guys all wanted to get to, right? The part you guys all wanted to see. I told y'all, man, John and Hickman's Fantastic Four. Son. I told you, man, dude, this was lit. It's absolutely amazing, right? So here's the thing. What ends up happening here is that Galactus takes Reed Richards to his ship Ta-2. Now, for those of you guys who don't know anything about Galactus comes from a universe that's basically dead, the previous universe, but in that universe, his homeworld was called Ta. He ended up creating a new home called Ta-2, right? So it's like a tribute to his old place. Now, here's the thing. This is what's so important, right? Galactus says, as soon as my herald returns with the others, we will depart immediately for this new world. Now, the response of Reed is, what others? And Galactus simply says there were several other beings on your world that had prolonged exposure to the same particles found on my remains. And the response of Reed is like, not my family. And the response of Galactus is no others, right? We'll find out what that means later on. But he says, but the response of Galactus is, it is not lost on me that you have a universally relevant intelligence, Reed Richards, meaning you are intelligent on a universal level, and everybody in the universe respects how smart you are, because Reed is arguably the smartest person in the entirety of the Marvel Universe. And Galactus asks, you notice how rapidly we left your planet? And the response of Reed is, I did. It was inconsistent with your established protocol of energy conservation, especially now knowing the surfer will collect others that will probably need secondary transportation. But considering my relatively small sample size when compared to your overall longevity, I thought it best to continue observation silently. Now, this is where Galactus spills the beans, and this is what's so amazing, because I'm getting ready to leave you guys on a cliffhanger from hell, right? So he literally says, right now, my primary goal is the prevention of my unnatural demise, my unnatural death. But we left because I feared the outcome of a potential confrontation if I had stayed on Earth. And Reed's like, you were afraid? And the response of Galactus is, the blocks in his mind have been broken and his powers are active again. Reed Richards, we have to talk about your son. We need to talk about Franklin Richards. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Cliffhanger, son. I'm gonna go see Wakanda Forever later on today. We'll be back next Thursday. Thank you all for watching. I will catch you all later. Peace.